Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the INNERGEEKDOM SHOW. I am the swaggy blurred Winston A. Marshall, and episode 4 of Falcon The Winter Soldier is in the books. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if you didn't learn a long time ago that you keep your hands off a lady that doesn't want to be touched, Ayo and the Dora Milaje just showed your ass today. I'm gonna tell you right now, that was an ass whooping for the ages. And they weren't even super soldiers. So we're going to get into it, man. We're going to talk about it. This is going to be an absolutely crazy episode. And even more so than what we've seen in the previous episodes. Like, I was joking, for those that have seen CB4, I was out here talking about this writer staff is black, y'all, and they black, y'all, and they black, and they black, and they black, y'all. Like, I mean, the all the things that we tackled in this episode were so crazy. We got some amazing action. We covered some really solid ground as far as philosophy and what's right and what's wrong, what's a means to an end and what's too much. And we got to see some pretty amazing character development and stuff like that. So I, of course, had to bring in a dope crew to do it. Now, first of all, my engineer extraordinaire in the building, as always, Mr. Dwain Burke. What's up, Dwayne?
Hey, how's it going? This was an episode. I think we finally kicked into the gear that the show needed. And I think we've set the tone for how the last 2 episodes are going to go.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I think that this is, which is amazing. They've done it yet again, where we have a perfect intro into Act 3 of all of this coming to a head. And I cannot wait to do it. But because we had such a blickety black episode, and because we needed somebody that really knew their stuff comic wise that would be able to talk about this, I had to bring in somebody that's become a like a little brother to me in this internet sphere, man. You know, he kills it with his own program, Spin from the Real, and Who Are They? Movie Talk and stuff like that. They are an eclectic group, a gentleman, and he is one of their members. I had him on earlier for our Justice League their Snyder Cut Justice League talk a couple weeks ago. So I would like to welcome back to the INNERGEEKDOM Show, Mr. Matt Thomas. What's good, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. And of course you had to sun me again, didn't you?
It is what it is, man. I mean, I sun you in age, you know, so that in and of itself is enough. But it's funny. It's not that much of a sunning. Your stuff. Your work. I mean, you do your own reviews yourself, and they've been pretty phenomenal, man.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm excited. I know there are times you and I just end up talking about what's going on in shows and everything. And after this episode, I'm definitely really excited to dig down deep into this, because there's a lot to go through.
No, 1,000%, man, 1,000%. So I'm ready to just dive right into it, just because we have a lot of ground to cover, but a lot of themes as well. And I actually want to start with something that happened before the episode. We got the Zemo cut of last episode. And the funniest part about it is that it's only about maybe 30 to 45 seconds of dancing, but Marvel went and looped it for an hour, which is phenomenal. And the amount of like trolling to like DC, to all the Snyder Cut fans and Warner Brothers and all that stuff, especially because I saw someone's tweet that was like, 1,200 some odd days from the first Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut tweet to the Snyder Cut, and then this to be like 6 days from the release the Zemo cut before they released the Zemo cut. Like, I was in tears seeing that. I was like, yo, that's bad disrespectful, but also kind of hilarious. And I feel like that's the thing, is that part of the reason why we see Marvel winning so much is I think that there's this level of just like not taking things too seriously. You know what I'm saying? We're like, they're serious where they need to be, like, as we'll see as this episode goes along, but they're willing to like crack jokes at themselves and others. And I think that that's part of why overall, most people don't have that many bad things to say about the MCU, because it feels very lighthearted while still being able to get to the nitty gritty. You know what I'm saying? It feels balanced. But let's hop into it. This 4th episode is called The Whole World is Watching, which I really have to give, again, so much credit. The titles of these episodes are spot on. And this one is no different.
The double meaning, which we'll get into.
1,000%. We start in Wakanda. It's years ago. And AO is using the code words, and Io, and Bucky's like, I don't know, and she's like, you'll be fine. She uses the code words. He's having minor flashbacks of all the stuff he's done, and he's streaming tears because he's fighting it, but he also realizes that he's not slipping. And then she uses, after it happened, she's like, you're free, James, you're free. And he's just here just streaming tears because he's finally free of this hellish Nazi prison he's been in, since the first World War, bro. Like, he's been trying to deal with it. And so now we jump back to the future, and the two of them are the Second World War. I'm tired. And so the two of them are talking, and like AO's pissed. She's like, yo, son, the hell is your problem? Like, with time, will, and resources, the Winter Soldier program was removed from you like a rotten fur. And this what you gonna do? Goddamn. Okay, well, there's my one for the day. Damn well that Zemo done killed King T'Chaka, and that was one of our greatest failures. I cannot believe you brought him out. And he's like, it's a means to an end. We have to catch this woman. She goes, you got 8 hours. In 8 hours, Zemo is ours, period. And that conversation is over. And Bucky out here like,
she just walks away like that was a power move. She just turns around and walks away, and he's just still standing there like, okay.
Like, literally, like, ooh, she would have murdered me. Because that's the funny thing about it, is that, like, even as super soldiers out here realizing if she wanted to murder him, she would.
Yeah.
Like, very aware of that. And so we go to Bucky returning to Zemo and to Sam. And Bucky's like, look, the door coming. It is what it is. We got a little bit of time, but they're pissed. You're going back to jail, son. Maybe you're gonna get killed, but this is what it is.
So go to Wakandan prison instead, which we still haven't seen, because we know that's the same reason they wanted Claw, so they can deal with him as they see.
But I have a feeling that he wouldn't go to prison. I have a feeling that, maybe because T'Challa didn't let him get killed, didn't let him kill himself. He wanted him to face his punishment, so they probably would put him in prison for life instead of a death sentence based off of that. Though, if he tries something, do not think that the Dora Milaje would hesitate to just stab his ass. So,
without a doubt.
Yeah. So they're having a talk. Carly obviously attacked that GRC building that we saw last time. Things are escalating. Zemo calls Carly a supremacist and says that that's what the super soldier serum does. It leads to Nazis, to Ultron, to the Avengers. And Sam's like, look, she's just been radicalized. Like, I can talk her down. And Zemo says this line: the desire to become superhuman cannot be separated from supremacist ideals. Anyone that with that serum is inherently on that path. She will not stop. She will escalate until you kill her or she kills you. And that's when Sam and Bucky go, well, the serum never corrupted Steve. And Zemo gives his props. He goes, touche. But there's never been another Steve Rogers out there. Like, what did you think about that moment, man?
That moment hit hard for me because, especially when I found out we were getting the show, it hit me hard because when I first started getting back into collecting comic books was around the time Sam Wilson actually became Captain America. So I want to say like 98% of that original first run of him being Cap. And so this show is important for me from that minute. And in my head, I'm always like, Sam's honestly the closest thing we have to Steve Rogers. And and Steve realized that. That's why he gave Sam the shield.
Right.
And we see shades of that throughout this episode, and we'll get more into it as we go forward. But I'm just sitting there like, no, Steve Rogers 2.0, the Steve Rogers the world needs right now is standing right there in front of you.
Well, and I think the thing about it that's so interesting too, I think it even says something about him, and we get this conversation a little later in the episode as well, that, the fact that he didn't want the mantle,
right? The
fact that he was like, this is not something that we want, I think that is such a huge factor into what it is that Steve himself didn't want to be like a hero. Steve wanted to be able to do his duty to protect people. That's what he wanted. He wanted to bring peace. He wanted to be a defender. He had no desire to do it for the glory. You know, like obviously he did the USO shows and whatnot in First Avenger and the bill and the bonds to get people to donate money and stuff, but it's not what he wanted. He wanted to make sure that people didn't die. He wanted to make sure that tyranny didn't reign, et cetera, et cetera. And Sam's kind of the same way. He's like, I want that too, but I'm not trying to do it for the glory. I'm not trying to be Captain America. I just want to make sure that people don't die. And the fact that he even wants to talk Carly down, as he says here, points to that too. He doesn't even want villains to die if he knows that they can be rehabilitated in this particular case, and even then,
or reasoned with, not even rehabilitated, but reasoned
with, exactly. And that I think is one of the things that really shows true to his character and why he's perfect for this. But before we go a little bit further, I obviously forgot to do a couple things. And one, welcome the podcast crew. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Be sure to leave us a nice little review, share with your friends. You know, if they're like, oh, I want to talk more about this stuff, this is the place to do it. So definitely share that around. Appreciate y'all. Tell us your thoughts about what's going on. If you're watching with us live on YouTube, the Super Chats, the Streamlabs, it's how you help support the show. We have a goal here of about 200 each week. That's what we're trying to do to be able to continue to keep the lights on. So we appreciate it, each and everything that you got coming through. But let's get back into it. So Sam, Bucky, Zemo, they start questioning the community about Danya. At the same time, we see Carly and her crew listening about the Patch Act after their last Flag Smasher attack, and essentially how they've just made the GRC and the UN be like, we got to step this up and add more borders and more rules and making things a little bit worse.
Back to where we were before the blip. And Winston, how you gonna forget about the TT moment? Come on, man.
I didn't forget about the TT moment. I just don't want a bunch of white people using the term TT inappropriately going forward. So it was as dope as it was. I just didn't want to call more attention to it. And then all of a sudden, I got my homeboy Jeremiah being like, so my TT the other day. And I'm like, no, you don't have a TT. You have an aunt. Stop. You stop this. I mean, which is funny though. As a kid, I mean, even to this day, my mom's sister, I call her T. Just because I couldn't say auntie when I was younger. I just call her T. So like I feel like every black person has some version of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I got of my two aunts, one of them is T Deborah and the other one is Aunt Diana because she's very proper. Let's put it that way.
Mind of Nathan donated $20.
Thank you,
Good guy, weight of the shield is getting heavy. Everyone who throws hands with him is on the juice. The freaking Dora Milaje hoed him and this brat killed his best friend. I would have snapped and juiced up too. I understand. Hashtag my cap hashtag, but he's got a go toe.
Damn. I mean, look, I get it. Like someone's catching hands if you murder my friend, but like, at the same time, though, if you are literally Captain America, you know what you're not gonna do?
Killing it
on camera. Like there are a million. Like you got super soldier senses now since you done took the damn serum, and we're jumping ahead, but we'll get to that, bruh. You see everybody filming your ass. You need to calm down. But it brings us again back to these conversations we're having. So if we continue on, they're asking for Danya where to go. Sam and Bucky don't have any luck. Sam ends up talking to a teacher and is like, hey, we're trying to find where this is so we can stop Carly and blah, blah, blah. He's like, look, man, the GRC promised us teachers and resources 6 months ago, and they haven't done nothing to help. So we got nothing for you. Zemo goes a different route. He goes and finds the kids, gives them the Turkish delights while singing Baba Black Sheep. And they're like, okay, and they're evil. So don't tell them. You just work with me. Okay. All right, cool. We good. Bet. Which Zemo is just a genius, man. Yes. I love how they're portraying him because that's exactly how he is in the comics, you know?
Yeah. No, it's granted, I do like what we got in Civil War, but it's nice seeing the other side of him, the smart, like we already knew he was smart, but the tactical side. He's like, all right, let's pay off the kids with candy. Later on, he pays her off with actual money and all that. But going back to the scene with the teacher, something I thought was a nice parallel to what's going on today without it being without saying what things really are is we're not refugees, we're internationally displaced persons.
Right.
In today's society, that is refugees. But to make a nice parallel without feeling like it's being shoved down your throat.
Right.
Displaced from the blip, and we're all just trying to survive. And I really dug that. It was nice to just hit those emotional beats and see how real it makes you feel.
No, I agree with you 1,000%, man. I agree with you 1,000%. And we go from here into Sam really starting to understand what's going on now. Because he even says it when they re-meet up. He goes, it's been 5 years of folks squashing beef and coming together and in these horrible times. And now people are back and things are being restored to poverty and separation and hate. And Sam believes that, Carly's different than other causes because she's motivated by something different. And there's a moment then where they were like, well, Zemo, what happened with you? And he's like, well, I may have figured out where she is. It's like, well, tell us. And it's like, nah, because y'all are just going to turn me over. So I want my leverage. And Bucky's like, you need to tell us, son. I'm going to bust your head in.
No, I'll show you leverage. Yeah, I'll show you leverage.
Well, and Sam goes, hey, man, stop. Because he's just going to mess with you and do a stupid head tilt.
And
he's already in the head tilt. And he just goes, it just immediately like straightens up after being called out, which I'm like, yo, the wittiness and how these little jokes come in, and they don't have to be like overtly funny. It's just like this little baby situational comedy helps just balance all this stuff out, which is so funny. But Sam calls up Shannon and is like, yo, I'm sorry, Sharon. Why did oh God, I clearly wrote my notes tired as hell. I'm out here concerned about corruption when I need to be worried about the show. Calls up Sharon and is like, yo, I need you to follow via satellite, to make sure that we don't really lose Carly, but also to keep tabs on stuff with John Walker. And, she's like, all right, but the power broker pissed after what happened since you killed Nigel. So y'all need to get that back because Madripoor's about to become a war zone. And Sam's like, all right, my bad. We'll take care of it. Carly grabs the remaining vials at a grave site and is talking to one of her colleagues. And this to me was some of the best lines that I saw here. So he goes, Captain America made me believe that there were good people out there. I didn't think that there could be another Captain America until I met you, talking to Carly. Back then, there was just good and bad. But the world's more complicated now. People are lost. They need a leader who looks like them, who understands their pain. Someone who understands that today's heroes don't have the luxury of keeping their hands clean. I don't know about you, but I'd love to hear your take on this, Matt. I mean, for me, hearing these words really, again, felt like a big parallel as to what's happening right now. And this idea that people do feel very lost and divided. And kind of a same thing where we're looking for another Martin or Malcolm or something like that to kind of help focus us and lead us forward. You know what I mean? I mean, what do you think?
You actually hit it right on the head. In the show, in regards to the show, I'm like, he just described what Sam is to me in this show. That's literally what he described what Sam is. But no, it does throw a nice parallel to what's going on in the world today, especially within Black culture, because there hasn't really been anyone besides Obama since Martin and Malcolm, and it's just how the world is. And you see, I mean, I don't know. I live in Cleveland. I see two sides. I see the more middle class Black, and I see the lower class Black, and I dealt with that myself within my family, to where those sides are at war with each other at times, just because they're not willing to see that middle ground. So
I agree.
I have cousins who hate me just because of the way I was brought up. It's those situations just happen, and it's just because of the difference in poverty line. We still have the same interests and whatnot. We play civil when we're at big family gatherings. So hearing those lines, it made me think automatically about the culture we live in today, especially Black culture. So
no, 1,000%. I think that's the thing that's so crazy, is that we started to see some sort of, more division, but also some unity this past summer. But that's, I think, the thing that's so kind of crazy right now is you look at how more and more divided we're becoming on all sorts of lines, from stuff super serious like political stances and laws and stuff like that, but for stupid crap like Star Wars and comic book movies. And it's like, and not to the, I like this, I like this, I don't like that, but like you like that, you stupid son of a, and it's like, but why? Like, why are we this hostile with each other? And I think that that's one of the things that this show, and particularly this episode, is getting at, is that we may think differently. The only thing that is ultimately the problem is, is your means to get to where you want, is your approach too far, too extreme? And that's a lot of what gets both talked about, but then we ultimately see what that means. We saw that from Carly's side by blowing up a building full of innocent people. Like the news report was like, oh, one homie had been on the job for a week. Like he had literally just started working the job and got killed. And now we get to see this again at the end of this, which is so crazy. So all of a sudden, here comes Walker and Battlestar. They find Sam, Bucky, and Zemo. They demand that Zemo go back to jail and they tell him where Carly is. Sam's like, I want to reason with her. And Walker just looks at Bucky and goes, you're just going to let him do this? You're going to let your partner go in with a super soldier alone? And Bucky goes, first of all, he's dealt with worse. Second of all, not my partner. And then Battlestar's like, look, man, it's worth a shot. Like, if he can really talk this down and de-escalate this, that actually is the best move. So he's like, fine. The little kid comes up. Zemo does the payoff instead of with candy, with actual dollars, and was like, all right, how about we, let's go over here. This is for your family. They go to the funeral. John's like, I will give you 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, talks are done. We're coming in. Funeral happens. Sam and Carly talk. And at one point, they say like, Carly goes, they started a war when they kicked us out of our new homes and onto the street. And I can understand that this idea, this displacement, this is like a nice metaphor, other than there's obviously more apropos things that are going on, including the fact that I know that there's a lot of fear happening right now with COVID, how you had the eviction moratorium, but when it's up I think we lost Matt temporarily. He'll be right back. No worries. But a lot of people know, obviously with COVID, there's like the eviction moratorium going on, and there's this massive fear of massive homelessness that might happen when that does eventually pass, stuff like that. But there's a lot of allegories to gentrification and stuff like that. Whole neighborhoods kind of being taken over, people's houses and apartments being bought out so you can put up these mega high rises that people can't afford to live in and stuff like that. It's a really nice kind of parallel. I don't know if you also caught that yourself, Dwayne.
I mean, I did catch that, but for me, what was most important about this conversation was this was the first moment where I truly felt that we got to see what Steve saw in Sam.
Yeah, I agree.
When he said, when you start killing people, it doesn't make the world a better place. It just makes it different.
Right.
I was like, that's a Steve line. Like that was pure Steve Rogers.
Right.
And that's where you start to sort of see, okay, Steve didn't make the wrong choice.
1,000%. And I the thing that got me the most is he even starts off by saying, I understand your frustration. I understand your helplessness. He brings up that line, like you said, you start killing people, it just makes it different. And what, like, he asked her, he was like, this person I know about super soldiers says that, like, it makes you what you're doing makes you a supremacist. She's like, what? And she got really pissed off. She's like, well, what about all the people that you're going through? And they're like, they're roadblocks in my journey, and I'll kill them again if I have to. And he's like, see, that's exactly what that sounds like. And she goes, well, wait. And so, like, the fact that, again, not only his compassion, but his logic in which he's able to kind of talk to people, we are seeing Carly, the wheels are turning here. And she genuinely looked like that. I was frustrated because we were cutting back and forth to Walker, and he was getting more and more like, I'm going in. And it was like, Bucky tries to stop him once. But if he literally had his 10 minutes, Carly would have maybe backed down. Like, we were actually seeing this moment where this could have been de-escalated with no more violence. And Walker's arrogant ass ruins it. So he obviously walks in. He storms in. Carly gets spooked, and she's like, "Oh, you're lying to me. I didn't realize it was all for your, so your backup could show up. And I swear it wasn't like this. Blah blah blah." She's on the run now. Zemo had escaped from being handcuffed and catches up with her and shoots her in the gut, and then she ends up dropping the serum, and he smashes all of them except one. When Walker comes in and knocks Zemo with the temple shot with the shield, which I was like, "Oh, Zemo's dead. There's no way he's alive from that." Like that. Jesus Christ. You're muted.
I mean, we've seen other people survive the temple shot. I mean,
the truth is, when Sam does, or not with Sam, when Steve does it, ain't no surviving a temple shot. You're dead. A super soldier threw a vibranium shield to your dome. You're dead.
Fair. No, this scene, this scene was actually really cool to me because you get to see Sam use his skills that we know that he had from Winter Soldier. Yeah. You get to see how hot-headed Walker is because he's like, I know those soldiers, that's a bad idea. And that honestly, I thought was more of a hint to his backstory. And we'll get more into that when we get to that next scene of him and Hoskins out and about. So
yeah, for sure. So they roll in, knocked out. John pockets a serum before anybody can see it. So now the power broker is threatening Carly and the Flag Smashers, like, girl, you out here playing revolutionary on borrowed time. You're going to return my serum or that's your ass. And so they're like, all right, we can't win 2 wars. So we'll deal with the power broker, but we got to separate Sam and Bucky away from this new Captain America and we're going to kill him. So now Zemo is talking to Sam. We're back in their little home base. And he's like, if you were offered the serum, would you have taken it? And Sam, without hesitation, says, no, I wouldn't. And he goes, it's interesting that you say that without hesitation, which, again, Sam is not seeking power. Sam is just trying to do the right thing and help people. And I think that again, that's what was going on with Steve. Steve didn't want the power so he could be a superhero. Steve just wanted, because he was not physically able to defend people, he just wanted enough that he could like be there and be in the fray to defend people, not to fight, but just to defend people. And you're kind of seeing that. Now, I don't think, knowing that the last vial ended up in Walker's pocket, I don't think there's going to be some storyline where they ultimately give it to Sam. I think he's just going to be himself and ultimately take the mantle. As was happened in the comics, but it was just interesting to see that if he does somehow get the serum, that he's the exact type that his character would blossom further with that. But here comes the fun part, because after that conversation, in busts in Walker and he goes, it's over. Zemo coming with me. You shut down. You're done. And he goes, okay, look, bro, shield or no shield, all you doing is running your mouth. And then in come the door, and he was like, "Oh, you want to do this though? Because I'll put it down, and we make it a fair fight." And Sam was like, "Bruh, don't do this." And then in come the door of Milaje, and they go, "Your time's up. Give us Zemo." And John Walker goes, "What's up? I'm John Walker, Captain America." And they're like, "Nope." And they go, "All right, well, why don't we put down the pointy sticks and we could talk this through?" I'm like, "Did you just call the Dora Milaje's vibranium spheres
pointy sticks?"
Bruh.
And I love how Sam's like, you might want to fight with Bucky before you mess with them.
1,000%. You want to fight Bucky before you tangle with the Dora Milaje. And then he goes, it doesn't matter because the Dora Milaje don't have jurisdiction here. And then the coldest line in the whole episode, the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be. I said, oh.
I was like, yes.
I was like, please, Lord, just let the Dora Milaje just kill him and say it was like, you know, like not even pretend like it was an accident, but be like, you know, he got in the way. I don't know what to tell you. And this is where it all just goes sideways, because he again tries to do this like real talk. Like, if we're just being honest right now, this is like some white boy American arrogance where he just thinks that because he's Captain America, he just has free reign to do whatever. He touched Ao's shoulder, and that was it. I immediately flashed back to Civil War, where she walks up to Black Widow and goes, "Move or be moved." The minute he put the hand on that shoulder, she said, "Whoop!" And immediately it's on. And my favorite part is that Sam, Zemo, and Bucky are all just chilling. Like, Bucky and Zemo are just sipping their whiskey, just watching the fight. And Sam's like, come on, man, we got to do something about this because they are getting their pushed in, bro. Like, it is bad how much they're getting their ass whooped. And so eventually Bucky and Sam do intervene because the Dora are about to kill John. And Bucky's like, yo, stop. And so now Bucky and Ao are fighting, and now Sam's trying to take on the other Dora that are like out here about to kill Battlestar. And all of a sudden, my favorite part, Ao hits it with the 5 point palm exploding technique on his arm, and his arm says bloop bloop. It just falls off,
and you just like he looks he looks a little bit heartbroken at the same time. Like it's not even just shock; it's a mix of shock and heartbreak, because you're like, and let's be honest, back to that first scene, it seemed like there might have been a little bit of something there.
I feel like there was like a situation where like it's not a will they won't they type thing, but it is this level of like mutual respect and I think love that you could kind of see, whether that's like platonic friendship, colleague love, or whatever it is.
Right.
He's definitely heartbroken because Lord knows what she actually said in Wakandan, because I don't know about you with the subtitles. It just said speaks Wakandan, but she calls him James again. And that's the thing. Everyone else has been calling him Bucky. This is the first person in forever to call him James. And so that even further goes to show how close they were. And this seems to be that moment of, by disarming him, literally, it's like, this might be it. Like, we had our good times, but you've made it very clear what it is, especially because Zemo escapes. In the fray, Zemo, there's a joke about, he went full El Chapo and like went down the sewer grate and like that was it, man. And so I think that's that moment where AO and Bucky's relationship kind of has changed. I mean, what do you think, bro?
No, I agree, because you can see as she's walking out, she's still just very upset by how all of this occurred, and he's still just disheveled from losing his arm, and he looks up and I love how Sam's like, "Did you know they can do that?" And he's like, "No, just
no idea."
He looks defeated, just defeated on even emotional levels.
Yes,
not physical, but the emotional. And that's honestly what I'm loving about these shows, is we're able to get more into that. And I have a feeling in these last 2 episodes, we'll dive even further into that.
I agree. Now here to me is that moment that I think is even more funny, because this is again, and what they did a brilliant job of doing over the course of this series so far. We were given the breadcrumbs of where this was going, and every time Walker proves that he is not up to the mantle, that he is not Steve Rogers, that he is not really Captain America, he is Captain America in name alone. You're seeing this person that essentially is very entitled,
right,
get checked and put in his place, and checked and put in his place, and realizing he is in over his head.
Cracking, not snapping completely, but just cracking slowly but surely under the pressure.
And because he even says this, and he was like, they weren't even super soldiers, bro. Like, and that's the funny thing about it. And I think that was a further moment that should have been the moment that checks, instead of going, "Oh, I need the serum because whatever." This is a moment where you realize that, like, even though Bucky and Sam got beat too, they held their own better than him. You know what I'm saying? And like, it's funny because that was that moment. Like I wrote a tweet. I was like, Black women always doing what needs to be done and stuff like that. The Dora Milaje are literally the coldest warriors on the planet. Unless you have superpowers, you ain't taking on the Dora Milaje, period. That's just, it is what it is. And that was that rude wake-up call where he thought he could just roll up in their hood. I mean, obviously we're not in Wakanda, but roll up in their hood, because remember, their jurisdiction is wherever they find themselves to be, and got put in his place, man. And it was then that we then get a conversation between Battlestar and Walker, a similar one about the serum that we had earlier with Zemo and Sam and Bucky, and this idea of like, well, would you, Walker asked him, he goes, "Would you take the serum?" And he goes, "Hey man, yeah, why not? The power is just going to further make you look at it, who you are, Carly, Steve, and you made great decisions on the battlefield. You got 3 medals of honor." And he says something very interesting. I don't know if you caught this. He goes, three badges for the worst day of my life. Meaning that he probably did something horrendous.
And this is why I go back to the Sam's VA. I know those guys. That's a bad idea. And I'm like, okay, we're getting some context clues. There's a lot going on with him that's just way under the surface that we haven't seen yet. And I was talking to my buddy Nick, and he's like, could next episode be full of flashbacks for Walker? And we get that. And I'm like, possibly, because it would only make sense. You're at that point. We're now starting to get more context clues behind the scenes. If you're doing a Walker-centric episode where we end up having like we talked about earlier, a possibility of the U.S. government defending the living hell out of him, and flashbacks to what he experienced leading up to this.
I think so. I think we might get some of that, especially if in some way, I doubt it. I bet he's still going to be out here running, because I do think that you're going to get a situation where maybe he gets backed by America. Well, he's Captain America and he killed a terrorist. But I think that, if there were some sort of like trial or something like that, maybe we get these flashback moments. But essentially, you're like, Battlestar's like, if you took it, you would be great, man. Like, but we don't have it anymore, so whatever. And then Walker obviously gives his face because we know he pocketed some. Carly calls Sarah, threatens her, and is like, look,
I just need to leave your brother alone.
I need to know more. Well, before that, she goes, I need to know more about him, because he clearly works for this clown, Captain America. And he goes, no, I don't care who his. It's like, well, you're from America, you must care. And she's like, America ain't give a crap about me. I don't care who its mascot is, but I'm gonna tell you, my brother does not work for him. My brother is doing what is right. He's not about. She's like, all right, well, tell him to come alone. I'm gonna come find you. I'm gonna find your kids. We gonna have a talk. And so Sarah obviously calls Sam. Sam's like, get some cash, get out of town. I'm gonna handle it. Carly tells him to come alone. Obviously, he brings Bucky. They're talking for a while. That's when all of a sudden they realize it was a distraction so that they could ambush Walker and Battlestar. They're in a fight with the remaining super soldiers. They're getting whooped around and whatnot. He's doing okay this time, which is making us realize that, oh, he probably took it maybe, but we don't have any proof yet. Until, he ends up like kicking one down the stairs or something like that. And he throws the shield. Arrives. Yeah, exactly. As Sam and them arrive, and they're helping out with the fight and everything like that. And they're actually all doing very well against the super soldiers this time. Maybe it's because you're not hanging on a truck. That was kind of deadly last time. Which goes to show experience over everything. Because again, Sam being obviously his tech helps him, but Sam being probably the weakest out of everybody, his experience gets him above you know what I'm saying? Like that. Bucky, as being a super soldier and having that arm, is doing fine.
Right.
Sam is proving why he's an Avenger, and that it's not just his ability to de-escalate, but he can hold his own. But then remember, he ends up bending that pipe, and that's that moment where we see
Sam's just like, what did you do?
Exactly. And then he throws the shield, and the shield got lodged in the wall.
That was the first sign to me.
That was the first sign, because you were like, you're not pulling that out. Like, you're not a regular human ain't doing that, but he just yanks it out, and I was like, and the pipe bending. But then Lamar at one point gets dropped. Carly ends up, what was it, a drop kick? I want to say she kicks the hell out of him, and he flies backwards and his neck into the pillar and snaps his neck. And I'm out here like, oh God, please let them have shared the serum, and Lamar is fine, and Battlestar gonna be all right. But obviously he's not moving. And Walker goes over to check and realizes he's dead. And that's it. He fully snaps. He is now chasing them all through the thing. Carly got away. Ends up finding the dude that had the conversation with Carly in the graveyard about, I didn't think there could be another Captain America, et cetera, right? Hits him with the shield multiple times, like knocking him and stuff. And he's like, hey, man, I didn't do it. And he's like, he's got his arms up like, yo, like I surrender, whatever. Everybody at this point, as has happened, if you're seeing a law enforcement person, all of a sudden your phone's out to like kind of catch what's going on, which was chilling to see that many people. But again, this is where I was like, these are some black writers to include this moment. And Walker is gone, and he just starts going, and we get a direct parallel to when Steve was with Tony, and the fight was at the end, and Tony was down, and that's a moment. You take that shield, you will behead Tony, but he puts it through the arc reactor so Tony can't fight anymore. And he walks away, not John. John hits him over and over and over until the dude is dead. And then there was just iconic blood everywhere.
The hands.
But that shield, he picks the shield up, and there's blood drenched on it.
On the bottom.
And everybody with their camera phones. And it was probably one of the chillingest, one of the most chilling moments we've seen in the MCU, like up there with like the blip, in that, like, again, the shield, what Captain America means, is supposed to be the one uncorruptible thing. And we just saw in cold blood someone like a hero, a symbol for America, murder someone in cold blood. And honestly, like, it was one of those things that I genuinely cried for a little bit last night when I saw it, because we're in the middle of the Derek Chauvin case.
Yeah.
And it took me back to the one of two times I've seen the George Floyd video, and to see someone go with this excessive force like that, and it's just be like, what are you doing? So I just like, and that's the end of the episode. We see Carly witness it and she's in shock. We see Sam and Bucky just like, oh my God. And that's our final image, is just Walker just like just with the, and I just, it was crazy. So all of this stuff, Lamar dying, this public execution. I mean, what are your final thoughts on the episode, on these moments, and then the episode as a whole, Matt?
Episode as a whole, this might be my favorite piece of Marvel content since Black Panther. But overall, especially in the second half of the episode, the parallels of Steve's journey and Walker's journey, and how they start off similar and then converge, because one, you could tell, isn't in it for the good of things. He's in it for the power, while the other is in it for the power. We talked, Steve, when Bucky died, kept on with the mission. Or when Bucky died, when Lamar dies, Walker snaps. It just completely and utterly, that is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and he just doesn't care at that point. And then we talked about the Civil War shot, and he could have just stopped after one and knocked the guy. It could have knocked the guy out. Granted, he's now a super soldier, so I'm like, no. I thought they'd be done after one. You just end up seeing the shield lodged in the guy's body, and that would have been dark enough for me. But to see it happen repeatedly, the blood spurt, and when the hand drops and you just see the blood running off of his hand and on the concrete, and you're just like, oh, and he's still going. Oh my God. And this is the kind of parallels that this is what I loved about the first two episodes, where they had no issue going into the fact that we're going to talk about some uncomfortable things.
Yep.
And you're going to have to be ready to have these conversations.
Yep.
And I know this is one of the shows that they've kind of hinted at might be a multiple season show. Mm-hmm. And we only got 2 episodes left.
I hope that they do. I thought that this was absolutely incredible. I hope that they do go forward with another season. I think you can. Yeah. I don't think it would make sense with WandaVision just based off of what that story was. Right. It was very much a limited series feel, but like I can 1,000%, because we're just touching the tip of the iceberg of what it's taking for Sam to take the mantle. He will have his own set of issues once he actually takes the mantle. You know what I'm saying? And
who knows if he'll actually end up taking the mantle. We know he'll take the shield, but the mantle may be the next season of willing to accept that, because he even said,
a feeling, based even on the talk with Rhodey at the beginning, I think what this whole season is getting us to is Sam finally saying, yes, I'm Captain America now. I honestly believe that that's where we're going, but that doesn't even then flush out the racism he would ultimately have to deal with now being Captain America, and how even that fight is now different, that he's decided to be that person. You know what I mean?
Because I remember Anthony Mackie talking about the show after D23 and it was announced, and he talked about the fact how you're not going to see me as Captain America in this show. You're not going to, but you are going to see the government basically not wanting a black man to take up that mantle. And we've gotten a little bit of it, and that's why I'm wondering season 2 is if it's the fight for the name at that point, because this is him accepting it. Yeah, you're right. Next season, if there's a season 2, would be the fight against our own government and trying to get to that next level of, you just need to accept this because this is what's right for us.
Including the fact that if he does take the mantle, what that means about the jurisdiction, and now are they fully reined in by the government again? Because like with the Sokovia Accord still kind of exists, but like Sam and Bucky have been doing their own thing. They've been working as contractors to the government, but they're not actually working for the government. So there's been a lot of stuff kind of going on here. But Dwain, I know we had some super chats and Streamlabs come in. Let's go ahead and read them real quick, man, because I know we only got about 10 minutes left before SCN kicks off.
Yeah. Tim Sim, just curious, what does the Flag Smashers reflect on in today's world? Also, that bloody shield at the end got me reflecting on American imperialism gone wrong. Interesting thought, if you ask me.
I agree. The first part is, what do the Flag Smashers represent now? I would say, the first thing that popped into my mind of the most recent endeavor, ironically, was the whole GameStop stock situation. Yeah. So the idea of like you have these billionaires and these hedge funds that have been playing this game, that have been screwing people over for a while, and someone found a loophole in the system, and this idea that it would have not only stuck it to those people, but technically to do that would have kind of screwed up the economy for a little bit if it had really, really gone where it was going. And so it's one of those ends justify the means type situation where it's like, if we fully crash this thing, can we really reset the rules and see if it'll happen? But is that too far? So that kind of debate there too. Or maybe the conversation even about defunding the police and even what that means and how far we go as to restructuring law enforcement and peacekeeping in this country and stuff like that. That to me, those are the two things that jump out as maybe parallels. I don't know if you two feel the same.
That's probably the best comparison I could come up with, honestly.
I kind of drew comparisons to like the Taliban and how they were not founded in a negative mindset, and even Zemo pulled something like straight out of the American military handbook. Like, if you need information, you go to the kids. The kids will give you information because they don't know any better.
Yeah. That's true. Cool. What else we got, man?
Garth Harkness McMurray. As an old comics fan, I've been waiting to see that John Walker scene since Captain America number 345 in 1988. They changed it from his parents' deaths to Lamar's death that make him snap, but we still see that he's no Steve Rogers. I'm loving this series.
What I love that Feige and the MCU have done, they find ways to keep those key moments if they need to adjust them for telling the story they're telling, which to me, I've always felt when people want to complain about certain little things, to remember the whole idea of the multiverse anyway is the idea that things are similar but different. And that's kind of how I feel about this, is in the same way. Instead of his parents dying, the idea is that, again, Lamar died, and that's the situation that pushes the same kind of narrative one way or the other. But yeah, I loved seeing the point where he is now essentially going over to being the U.S. agent. What about you?
No, I talked about that moment. It's just insane. I don't know a lot about U.S. Agent. I'm going to be honest. I've been doing my digging as the show has been going on because he's honestly been a really interesting character. I do know that this is basically leading to a Dark Avengers, which I am totally fine with, because, I mean, that's a great parallel. I mean, you're going to have the ones that are what we know and love versus these twisted versions and all there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think so. I need to check something real quick. Keep reading. What's next, Dwain?
Jesse Swift. Anyone remember the Whitest Kids You Know skit? Listen to the woman, John. Just calm down. Just calm down. So, like, calm down, John.
Like, real talk. Calm down. Calm down.
I mean, let's be honest. If John had calmed down the majority of this episode, Lamar wouldn't be dead.
Oh man, you ain't never lied, bro. I got some stories of the same thing. If my homies would have been like chilled, like just what you can end up doing in that. But yeah,
because and this is something I think John as a character is going to have to come to terms with. If he didn't interrupt Sam and Carly, we're in a completely different.
Curtis Lopez donated $20.
Thank you.
When the Dora Milaje was owning Walker, I channeled the hyped guy in the meme watching Demon Slayer.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Oh God!
I saw Jay tweeted that too. I was like,
I cussed him out last night because I was like, so you gonna take the meme I introduced to Blurds and you gonna use that to go and go, but you mother. But like, yeah, no, the beat his ass. Oh man, what else we got there, Dwayne?
This is the last one. I need some old school in my life. 10 out of 10 for this episode. I need a Dora Milaje series. I'd forgotten how cool those Grace Jones looking chicks were hashtag Wakanda forever. And I wouldn't have read that normally, but Grace Jones is a bad
mother. Shut your mouth, son. I agree with you. That's
but we know we're getting that Wakanda series now, so they could be a major part of that.
That would be cool. That would be super cool. That's the one thing that I would love to see, though, in the same way that I would love to see an Amazon series on the same side. If we're talking DC, you're talking some of the dopest warriors in all of like comic book lore on both sides of this whole thing, and they're badass women like out here like putting people to shame. And the Dora in particular, the Dora are just so. The attitude of like move or be moved. Did you just touch me? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just so bad. Like for me, still, there are such amazing moments in Black Panther, and there have been amazing moments in the MCU. I'm not gonna lie. I think the moment of all of the MCU for me is Okoye taking the wig off and hitting homie in the head, and then getting the fight. And I was like, it was something like I put that on repeat sometimes to get hype up in the morning. I'll be like, let me just watch the wig toss real quick because it's so savage. But tell them where they can find you, man. The stuff that you're doing, all that good stuff.
You can find me on my Twitter at WAT movies Matt _Matt, and you can find me and all my guys over at Watt Reel Entertainment, real spelled with 2 E's like a film reel. WAT as well. We do Spin from the Reel. I do that with my co-host Chris Anthony Lopez on Mondays. Schmoedown show. Really Scared on Thursdays with Taylor Cleek, who is the proponent of Rick the Rage Aratus, and his co-host Connor Breedlove. Fridays we have Wrestle Reel with Chris and my co-founder Nick, and then Saturdays we have Real Talk, where we try to give independent creators an opportunity to just speak on what they're doing in their careers and all that. And we were lucky enough to have Winston on a couple weeks ago, working on getting some other people on too. So.
That's what's up. Dwayne, tell them how they can find you, my brother.
You can find me anywhere and everywhere on the internet at BurkeMade. Tuesdays, twitch.tv/the Schmoedown for FCL live, 3 p.m. Pacific every week. Please come check it out.
That's what's up. That's what's up. And you know where to find me at the Swaggy Blurred. I'm here every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, breaking down these episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier. We're going to get into Loki. We're going to get into all sorts of stuff. If there's a little gap between Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Loki, I got to double check the schedule. I'll probably do some talks about Invincible, which has been amazing too. If you haven't checked that out, you should watch it. The show is phenomenal. Other than that, y'all, some exciting news. Our last 2 weeks, our last 2 guests, I went in and brought full-on powerhouses. Next week, I have one of the schmoes themselves, Mr. Christian Harloff, will be coming in to break down episode 5 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And for the season finale, I went and got the GOAT of the Schmoedown. I went and got Dan Murrell will be joining us for the season finale of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So you do not want to miss these next 2 weeks of the INNERGEEKDOM show. It is going to be a barn burner for real. Dwayne, hit that music. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming in, for hanging with us, for rocking with us today. Be sure to watch the match coming out today. It's Star Wars, I want to say Huey versus Whiteley. You don't want to miss that. And then the pay-per-view, Kevin Smith and Stacey Howard is the undercard. Dan Murrell and Adam Collins going at it again, toe-to-toe for the belt. You don't want to miss that pay-per-view. Schmoedownlive.com to get your tickets. $10 patrons also get that match. But last and certainly not least, the news did drop that DMX did officially pass not too long ago. So rest in peace to my brother. You brought so much joy to so many different people with your career and with your life. So all I have to say with that is rest in power to DMX. You guys take care of each other. Be safe out there. See you next time. Peace.